Good afternoon. Today is Monday, April the 29th. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Griffin,
Here.
McCormack,
Present.
Leisha,
Here.
Stanwell, Hairston, Casey,
Present.
Valencia, Santana, Spencer.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. So this one is ordinance number 368-2024 by Council Members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing, I don't see them here. Is the Community Development Department here? I do not see them here. Therefore, I'll come back to Community Development. Ordinance number 440-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to employ one or more consultants, computer software developers, or vendors, or one or more firms or consultants, computer software developers, or vendors necessary to implement various technology projects, services, and upgrades to existing systems under 2024 ITS Capital Project Plan, other related professional services to implement the plan, and to enter into various contracts to implement this ordinance. And I believe the amount is for $9.5 million. Is that correct? Okay. Chief and directors, you can announce whoever you like at the table, and please proceed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Finance Committee members. With me, I have Commissioner Kim Roy Wilson and Assistant Commissioner Larry Jones, who will be happy to kind of talk through the specifics of the ordinance, answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Council President, members of Council. This is our annual capital expense request that covers safety equipment, general fund application enhancement, website enhancement, citywide Microsoft licenses and support, infrastructure, and professional services. And just to kind of give you a sense of what's in these buckets, we are refreshing our computers. We are refreshing, it's that time of year where we have to refresh computers citywide, our switches, our endpoint switches within general fund, our help desk, we have to enhance our system there, website continued enhancement, and then we have our citywide licenses, which is about approximately $3.2 million, and another $500,000 for support services under Microsoft, along with upgrading our firewalls and cybersecurity. And this is just all of our annual, if you will, upgrades, replacements, refreshments, and enhancements.
Okay. Anything else to add?
Through the chair to the council members, the only other thing I will add is some of the safety-related items with this combined budget. So one of the things we are looking at is refreshing body-worn cameras for the officers. We also do an annual video surveillance camera refresh. I would like to report today that out of 2,700 cameras, 94 are currently down. So we're operating at an extremely high performance rate when it comes to our video surveillance cameras.
And those are the ones up and throughout the neighborhoods, if I'm correct, right?
Chair, that is correct.
Could you repeat that again for our listening public?
Sure. So out of 2,700 cameras citywide, 94 are currently down.
Okay. That's important because as we talked right before this, I know that a few people have come to the ward meetings and said that several cameras have been damaged or down, and if I'm hearing, it's a very small percentage. It's not that big of a percentage, right?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Just a couple of questions that I have. You have as a funding source future bonds, utilities, airport, CCA, which is Central Collections Agency, and any other funds deemed appropriate by the finance director. And I know we've had a brief conversation about this, but how can we tell which funds will be allocated to where? And why do you always need that flexibility as any other funds deemed appropriate by the finance director? I know that you mentioned it to me, but several council members might need that explanation as well.
To the chairman, so the purpose of the other funds deemed appropriate by the finance director is to give us flexibility given the fact that we don't know the future sitting here today. So we have our expectations of where the funding sources will come from. But it could be that we get a grant that we don't anticipate right now that could be used to pay for this kind of capital expense, and in which case we might want to use the grant as opposed to a source that maybe has been identified here. It could also be the case that a council member wants to add his or her own council funds to a particular project that might be in his or her ward. And if we don't have the flexibility in the ordinance authorizing the expenditure to allow for that, then that can't happen without a separate legislative process. So I think it's simply a way to ensure that we have the ability to react to the facts in the moment. It does not give us any additional substantive authority. The sort of appropriation is what it is. We can only spend appropriated funds. But it does give some bit of operational flexibility so that if 9 months down the road we have obtained money from another source, maybe we could end up doing a joint project with the county or somebody else. It allows us to flexibly resource the project so that we can get it done.
So I agree that it allows the flexibility, but just as a follow-up question to that, how do we know which funds are attributed to which subsection? For example, in this is an estimated 9.5 million. Out of that 9.5 million, how much would be for future bonds? How much is going to come out of the utilities? How much is going to come out of the airport? Or are you saying that really you're not sure, you kind of identify these as sources and you put in other potential sources to give yourself the flexibility to move between these different sources of funds?
Yes, it's sort of all of the above. I think for some items we could sit and figure out exactly what the proportionate cost is between the general fund, public utilities, the airport, CCA, et cetera, for, say the hardware refresh. We know how many computers are needed based on today's head count, but as staffing changes, staffing levels change in the various departments and funds, those numbers could change because computers are needed where people are, not sort of where they're not.
Right, and I believe in giving any management tool the flexibility to do it, but I also want to make sure what are fail-safes, and I know this is regular routine government, but it's important. What fail-safes that we have in place that you guys don't exceed some of these amounts, like technology changes dramatically from year to year. What the cost may be this year may be astronomically higher next year. How do we make sure that we're not approving something and then potentially the cost exceeding the estimated amount, say by another million or something? How do we just have to just trust that you guys are going to stay within that, or how does our oversight come in on that?
Well, I think the ultimate oversight is with respect to the funds that are appropriated. So, we have, because of the way we procure these goods and services, there isn't a definitive amount in the ordinance. It's estimated to be 9.5 million. Those numbers can go up and down based on what's happening in the economy and what's happening with responses to our RFPs and our requests for bid. The ultimate check, though, is on our total available amount of funds that are appropriated for the purpose. And we have to live within our appropriations. I think if, for example, the cost of this suite of work ends up being higher than we're anticipating, then we'll have to make a sort of administrative judgment call on, are there other things that we could delay, maybe do at a lower, cheaper extent so that we have the funds necessary to get this work done.
Okay. And Director, I like to know things because I like to know the basic blocking and tackling of government too. So I like our public to know that, even though I know Spectrum is down today, but some of the council members had asked that, and I wanted them to get a clarification on that as well, okay? For you, Ms. Roy Wilson, as well as Commissioner Jones III, have we done any kind of audit on all of our systems to justify these? Because it's my understanding in reading a lot around AI, artificial intelligence, and all of these other things that you're dealing with, that they change rapidly. We also know that cybersecurity and cyber threats threaten a lot of our information systems as well as our water systems and other things. Have we done an audit, or what led to the justification of spending this? Because we know technology changes rapidly, and we know that we're dealing with severe threats, and we're dealing with the rise in artificial intelligence and other tools that kind of can create some cyber security threats for us.
To the council president, so yes, so we work with our partners, our vendors, to audit our systems in terms of its usability, its efficiency, and as we, from year to year, there are always going to be increases with regard to additional upgrades, updates, more modules. So our audit comes from the perspective of the functionality. Have we outlived its usage? Are we at a point, because every year, there's the functionality of the system that we have to look at upgrading, or there is the replacement of the system that we have to look at going out to bid and purchasing a new system. So we do work with our vendors every year and throughout understanding the cost. A lot of this will go out for RFP, understanding what the current industry is with regard to this equipment and services, along with all the other equipment that's on here. So we do work with our vendors.
Okay, great. Want to add anything else, Mr. Jones?
Good, Council President.
Okay. All right, those are the questions I have. Do we have any other questions? Councilman Hairston, this was, oh, nope, this was not heard in DPS. Any other questions? Councilwoman Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's great to be at the table with everybody today. A little bit warm in the committee room today, but we're welcoming spring. I wanted to just take a moment, since we have this expertise at the table, to ask through the chair to clarify whether this piece of legislation is connected to an expansion of the camera program, because I know that in conversations with my colleagues, there are a number of locations that have been submitted to the administration for vetting, and not totally clear at this point what the source of funds would be to add additional cameras to our existing program. Through the chair.
This is just camera refresh. Through the council president to the councilwoman, this is camera refresh.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, that's correct. So the funds we have allocated today are for camera refresh. However, we're actually having conversations with Director Drummond, Director DeRosa about future capital improvement projects and how we leverage their funding for capital improvement with ITS funding to expand the camera program. So that is a discussion that's underway.
And then, thank you. And then to build off of that, through the chair, how have we actually funded actual program expansion historically? Has it been this source of funds, or what have we used historically to augment the program?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the last expansion was actually with ARPA funding. So that was probably almost 2 years ago that we received about $4.5 million through ARPA funds to expand the program. Typically, it's usually a joint partnership. We're currently working with Councilmember McCormick. There's some interested areas where he would like to see some expansion in the ward. So we will partner with him to figure out what infrastructure we already have in place, where can we leverage potential dollars he may allocate for the expansion of cameras in his ward.
Thank you. I turned myself off. Thank you. I think this is a really important point. So one question, follow-on question, through the chair, have the $4.5 million in ARPA funds been completely expended? Are there still funds remaining, or are those funds expended?
Yep. Through the chair to the councilwoman, those funds are expended.
Are expended. And I know that we typically do not put in writing or issue a communication about the locations, because that we want to be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't want to broadly advertise the exact locations of the cameras. That said, I think it would be interesting to have a general idea of where the cameras went, but putting a pin in that, what I'm now understanding is at this point in time, there is not a source of funds identified for camera expansion. However, if individual council members wish to allocate funds for cameras, we could work through you individually to have that conversation through the chair. Is that an accurate statement?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, correct. Typically what happens is we would take a group of council member request locations, then we would work internally with the safety director and the finance director to determine what funding could potentially be available in the future, whether it's grants, whether it's special projects that are coming up. And then we would work together to essentially put out an RFP to try to get the best pricing as well as the best vendor proposal together for the expansion of the program.
Thank you. And then my last comment, thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me this time for these questions, would be, I know that my office submitted a list of priority locations to Commissioner Carlton or Assistant Director Carlton. And I think what I'll do is follow up and open up that conversation about whether council funds can be used for certain priority locations going forward. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Just putting myself on the record. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next up, Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the commissioners, I just have a quick question. And you would meet with individual council members to go over where the location of the cameras are, correct? In their own specific wards, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, just wondering that. So we can set up something to go over
Yes.
locations and all that other stuff. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to speak in support of this ordinance moving forward, and just thank Commissioner Jones and the whole team for their help in this process. We, as was noted earlier, we have an area of my ward where, unfortunately, we've seen some violent crime recently, but then we have like really long-term chronic car break-ins, vandalism, things like that. And so we met with a group of residents, about 50 of them, and had a great meeting. And one of the follow-ups, we talked to CPP. Our rock star Jim Ferguson was there, and no pressure, but that night he had trucks out there fixing lights. And so I said, listen, the cameras are going to take a little bit more time than that. I said, they're not going to be out here tonight. But anyways, it's just kind of a chronic area issue where I think the cameras could be a big help. And so I just wanted to thank the department for your collaboration in that. And hopefully when we get all this new lighting in and then some of these eyes on the street, it will help mitigate some of the issues that the residents are facing in this area. So just wanted to speak in support of this ordinance and thank the department for their collaboration.
Thank you. Is that it?
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Hairston?
Thank you. So just to go back really quick, explain to me why, if council member wanted to pay for a camera to go somewhere, why we couldn't fund that through our discretionary dollars? Did I hear that right?
Through the chair to the council member, no. So if you had discretionary funding that you wanted to add a camera in the area, we would partner with you to get that camera installed.
Okay. All right. I thought I heard that we couldn't. I'm like, it's all the same funding. It's just each member has its own particular pot, so it wouldn't be any different, right? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 440-2024 stands approved. Please sign on.
And Assistant Director Wackers is on his way down.
He's here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, next up is ordinance number 368-2024 by council members Hairston and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to administer the Community Engagement Healthy Home Initiative to enter into one or more contracts with various community development corporations for the purpose of hiring community engagement specialists by neighborhood to improve the quality of life for residents and the city's housing stock, to enter into professional services contracts for acquisition of software and training to conduct the initiative, and to make purchases of materials, equipment, supplies, and services needed to conduct the initiative. Mr. Wackers.
Thank you, Council President and members of the committee. This is a follow-up to the approved general fund budget that Council approved recently in order for us to be able to contract the funding with the CDCs where these community engagement specialists are housed. We need to have Council authority to contract, and we're requesting this authority through this legislation. Happy to answer any questions that might.
Thank you. How many healthy homes specialists do we have again?
So we have funded for 15. We currently have 12 throughout the city at various CDCs.
Do they get cross-sector training? I know that Councilman Harsh had several questions about how we can integrate this into the building and housing How have you guys given thought towards that process?
Through to the chair, these are a critical conduit for the city of Cleveland to have with the residents, but also with the communities back to City Hall. And we want to make sure that they, as they're doing their engagements, their surveys with residents, where they see issues that need to be addressed, that they understand how to feed that information back to the city of Cleveland, not just through the Department of Community Development, but to referrals to building and housing when when issues of engagement with property owners that have violations that can't be resolved as a result of positive engagement, that they might need to be referred to building and housing for violations or more code enforcement type of actions. It is a very critical component that we are in order to have capacity throughout the city. They do around 4,000 engagements of various properties throughout the city, the majority of which, probably more than 90% of which, are dealt with in a positive collaboration, whereas a small minority of which are then passed on to the building and housing department. The only way to be able to do that is have community engagement specialists understand what is proactive in that manner, and cross-training or cross-collaboration that you mentioned is key in terms of their success.
All right, thank you. Councilman Hairston? This is heard in DPS?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. It was heard in DPS. It was passed. We did hold it, and it did not appear on last week's Finance Committee because we had sent a number of requests to the Department of Community Development requesting some information. I believe we got most of that back, which is why we have it on the agenda for today. I know that I did ask Councilwoman Spencer and Councilman Harsh from the committee to work with the department to think through some enhancements that can be made to the program, or just some changes along the way that can really make the HHI representatives more effective throughout our communities. And so I'm hoping that they will begin those conversations soon. I know that they, again, at the committee shared some thoughts on how and what, can be done to enhance this program here. So again, I asked them to, lead those conversations, and, I'll check in along the way. But overall, I think we're okay with the program. They did indicate that they are going to bring on additional layer of staff that'll be funded initially through their block grant dollars to kind of work in connection with these HHI representatives, and particularly to provide support to those areas that may not have a functioning CDC at the moment, that can be that gap filler to support the needs of those community, and to support those that may need a little bit additional help, depending on what's happening in those particular neighborhoods. So all in all, I think that we are good with where it is now. And again, we plan to have some additional conversation on how to enhance the program. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I have Councilman Brian Casey and then Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, who is the Community Engagement Specialist Manager, the program manager of this?
Through the chair to the councilman, the current manager that's overseeing the Community Engagement Specialist Program is Brett Parsons.
Who?
Brett Parsons. She's relatively new, but she's probably been in the department for about a year, and she's been actively coordinating with the current engagement specialist. She's also been, as was mentioned by the Chairman Hairston from TPNS, we are bringing on 5 additional regional community engagement specialists to cover areas of the city that are currently underserved, but also provide more support across the city as a whole.
All right, and then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, the community engagement specialists, are they employees of the CDCs, or are they employees of the city?
Through the chair to the councilman, so they are They are employees of the CDC who are directed by the city of Cleveland. So these are employees that are we do a contract with the CDCs, sets out a specific amount of funding. The CDC is responsible to hire the community engagement specialist that's going to serve within their service area. But ultimately, that person is at the direction of the city of Cleveland.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, they're paid by the CDC, correct? They're actually employees of the CDCs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, you currently have funding for 15 Healthy Home Initiative engagements, community engagement specialists. Does this money allow you to hire more?
So the funding allows us to hire 15. It does not financially allow us to go above that 15.
Okay.
If the question is about these additional community engagement specialists that we're hiring in the department, we're using a different funding source.
Okay, so for purposes of today's piece of legislation, Mr. Chairman, to the director, we're still staying at 15, but more will be hired at a later date using a different funding source.
We currently we're going to be onboarding 5 additional ones over the next month. They've been selected, and we're in the hiring process after the selection of the
But that's from a different funding source.
different funding source.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, how many CDCs currently have a community engagement specialist?
I would want to say there's around 9 that, because some CDCs are doubled up or have 2 community engagement specialists serving different areas. I can give you a current list of where they are.
Could you please provide that? And then last question, Mr. Chairman, to the director. There is no indication of removing any community engagement specialist who is currently in that role at a community development corporation from removing that individual from that corporation, correct?
To the chair,
You don't follow? Okay. In other
we're
words,
not looking to, if anything, we want to make sure that we have a full complement.
I understand that, but there's no plans of a community engagement specialist who is at a CDC or any CDC losing their community engagement specialist.
Certainly, with the passage of this funding, we'll be able to have new contracts with all the CDCs that
Okay.
have community engagement specialists.
It's, Mr. Chairman, to the director, it's a simple yes or no. Do you plan on moving any of the current community engagement specialists who are housed at any of the CDCs out of the CDCs?
Are you aware of anybody?
No.
moving out of
Okay.
CDCs?
And if the answer is no, that's what we're looking for.
All right.
Is it,
No?
the answer is no?
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Jenny Spencer and then Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Chairman Anthony Hairston's entrusting in Councilman Harsh and me the opportunity to further explore the operations of this program. I am going to recommend that later this year there be a deeper discussion. I think it would be very beneficial for council members to meet Ms. Parsons and to get a briefing on the current operations of Healthy Homes and to build that relationship. And I will also say, I don't want to overstate the matter, and I will not do a pop quiz question here at the table. I believe there are a number of council members who do not know their Healthy Homes specialists. And that is for this program to function as intended, that is a critically important relationship that should be a beneficial cycle of referral and support through a city-funded position. So I think that the vision for this program has always been outstanding. I think it is yet to realize its potential. And I would strongly encourage the administration to continue to work closely with council to ensure that those relationships are strong so that we can both inform our community members about this resource, but also be part of that cycle of referral and support to get more residents the help that they need as the program intends. I also just want to state at the table for the record today that I think the program has not realized its full potential because the specialists in many instances have been put into other special projects that were time sensitive, such as the citywide housing survey that surveyed every single property in the city to look at condition, which was a critically important data set, and yet it took our specialists off of their regular cycle of work and cadence of work. So I think that as this program matures, we really need to give it the resources it needs, but also strengthen the lines of communication between the administration and council. So I will look forward to future discussion about that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that you've had a lot of interest in this as well, and hopefully we can continue through our oversight opportunities to regularly engage them and not wait until the beginning of the year or the end of the year, but have regular conversations, because I concur with you completely. When I was looking at the hearing last time, I said I probably, out of most of the city workers that I know, probably have least interaction with my Healthy Home specialist than anybody. And that should never be the case. So we should maximize that program a lot more, and real interested, as you can see, with council members that really want to get engaged. I hope they can engage with you guys. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my honorable colleagues, to Assistant Director Wackers. So you indicated that you're going to follow up or provide the information pertaining to the 9 CDCs that are served at present, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So who services the northeast side?
So to the chair, to the councilman, currently, I don't believe there is a CDC, well, there is no CDC that we are funding with a contract for this community engagement specialist. So there is no one presently. It's one of the reasons why we're bringing on 5 regional community engagement specialists to be housed out of our department that will be able to provide those type of services to your ward.
So you're telling me and the others who have dysfunctional or CDCs that are not operating, that you're telling us at the table that you're guaranteeing us that we're going to have someone working our wards? And,
Yeah.
and when would that take place?
So we have finalists selected. I believe they're going through the onboarding process in terms of HR bringing on these regional community engagement specialists, and we want to have them deployed, within weeks, because the need is so great, and we see the benefit to making sure every portion of the city is served by this
Okay.
program.
So what are the 5 wards that will be servicing by these remote or mobile people?
So there won't be specifically 5 wards. There'll be a similar structure that, say, planning has, where you have these neighborhood planners that break up the city into 6 different geographies. So they will have geographies that are similar, and they will oversee those as a result.
So Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Wackers, the 5 will be part of the 15, or that's going to be an addition?
So we view these 5 as being sort of more regional, so they will have a little bit of a larger geographic area, but we are also, they will serve and provide much closer work on projects within City Hall. They'll be based out of City Hall. We think there are some advantages to that, just as there are advantages to having community engagement specialists based out of CDCs. And we're looking to make sure that there's no portion of the city that is unserved.
Okay, but are the 5 remote or mobile, or however you want to define them, are they part of the 15, or are they in addition?
They are in addition, using a different funding source.
So it'll be 20?
Correct.
Okay. So then, if that's the case, you're going to have 20, why wouldn't you assign 1 to each ward?
So again, through the chair to councilman, we are looking at trying to incorporate not just our existing sort of partners in the community, which are CDCs, but we want to have a geographic focus that is sort of, these are not ward specific, but we're looking at the neighborhoods and working on a structure that can reinforce that. So we have regionals that can oversee a larger geography, but then we also have more micro geographies that are going to be handled at the CDC level and the community engagement specialists.
So, Mr. Chairman, you know what my concern is? That, again, the quote-unquote trendy neighborhoods are going to get serviced, and then those of us who've had this dysfunctionality with our CDCs, and Mr. Chairman, we're in this situation where the Community Development Department is telling us, we don't want you to create a new CDC, along with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, but nothing's happening. So either the city's going to have to get off the dime and say, yeah, we're going to allow communities to create new CDCs if they have one that is not functioning and not being funded by the city nor through the council allocation, because nothing's going to get done in those neighborhoods. And that's what's happening. We have tremendous potential across this city in neighborhoods, especially on the east side, that have dysfunctional CDCs. And there's got to be a meeting of the minds here. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be adamant about this. I'm going to be on somebody like White on Rice. I'm not going to have to worry, and I want my neighborhood to be serviced. And if you're going to have 20 of them, there's no reason why you cannot have one per ward, working a ward. And now, and if there's areas that have more CDCs, I understand it, where you'd have to put some additional efforts into those neighborhoods. I don't want to deny anyone's services. But at the same time, my neighborhood is being denied service, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy with Community Development Department, and I'm not happy with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, because they continue to tell us to wait. And I keep asking myself, wait for what? Of the 15 calls I retrieved prior to coming in this room, over half of them were related to housing complaints about either abandoned houses or high grass on abandoned houses, or houses that are in disrepair. Over half of the 15 calls I got today. So do I need someone working in my neighborhood on housing issues like this, like I once had when I had someone assigned a neighborhood partnership inspector, which again you guys took away from us because you said you couldn't fund that. So so here I am. I've got opportunities in my neighborhood, but I don't have a CDC that's functioning. And now I have no guarantees I'm going to have a community housing specialist or community engagement specialist servicing my neighborhood. Do you understand where I'm at? What my concerns are, Assistant Director?
So through the chair to the councilman, I completely sympathize with your concerns. I think this, the legislation before us today is obviously for the CDC-based community engagement specialist, but we are implementing and actively having bodies that we want to bring and serve your ward just as any other ward. As a result, we see a lot of value in the community engagement approach, and we want to make sure that is strengthened and improved over time.
Well, Mr. Chairman, again, I'm going to continue to raise this issue. I'm not here to hold up the legislation, but I'm extremely concerned and disappointed with the fact they tell us we can't create a new CDC, and I'm not the only neighbor that is in this situation. But at the same time, I'm not getting the service and the assistance that we need, and I'm going to continue to raise it. I got to tell you, this is not helping the administration. A lot of people are asking, well, why is the administration allowing this to continue, allowing this to go on? So I'm just telling you, politically, it ain't helping you folks. If you think it might be, I can tell you it isn't, so you can pass it on to the mayor's folks. It ain't helping. A lot of people are raising questions about why the city will not in the sand and deal with these dysfunctional CDCs or work collectively to help create new ones in our neighborhoods. So I'm going to stop right there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 368-2024 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
All right, last but not least is ordinance number 478-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance to amend Section 40 of ordinance number 194-2021 passed March 29th, 2021, as amended by various ordinances relating to salaries for various classifications. And this is for the pay band for the comptroller, the airport's classification. Mr. Cole, please proceed.
Thank you, Council President and committee. Yes, this is to amend Section 40, specifically for the classification of comptroller airports. We discovered at some point between 2021 and 2023, the maximum salary for this classification in the pay band had been reduced from $124,250.48 to $104,982.48. This, of course, caused an issue with the current comptroller, as well as right now the recruitment for a new comptroller who's decided to move on to a different department in the city. So what I'm requesting is to raise or amend the maximum rate to $136,675.52, which includes the 10% adjustment that we put through for all non-bargaining classifications back on March 25th, 24.
All right, and this is for a new job posting, or is this to be commensurate with the gentleman who just left?
To the chairman, this is both, because the pay band as reduced inadvertently actually was below the salary of the incumbent. And then for the purposes of recruitment, they currently have it posted at a maximum of $123,500.
All right, so to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, you're looking for a new comptroller at the airport
Correct.
because the comptroller that was there before was getting paid $115,000.
Actually, it was, to the chairman, it was above that.
So they were currently getting paid above what was statutorily allowed in this actual budget, and now what you're trying to do is raise it to what we were already paying them?
To the chairman, no. The pay band for the comptroller actually used to max out at $124,250.48.
For the comptroller at the airport?
That's correct. Yeah, at the airport.
Because I'm looking at this, and it says that under 11, the comptroller at the airports, the minimum was $31,866, and the maximum was $115,480. And now what you're trying to make the maximum is $136,675.52.
To the chairman, yes, but the maximum was incorrect because inadvertently at some point between 2021 and 2023, the maximum for the pay band for this classification was lowered,
Here's where I'm going with this, and I'm trying to understand.
but not by legislation.
Was the gentleman that was there before overpaid because he didn't have legislation to get paid the amount that was authorized? So the amount that was authorized was a maximum of $115, and you're saying that that was incorrect because he was actually getting paid more.
To the chairman, yes, but the legislation actually was there.
So the
It was a pay
legislation,
band
you
error.
passed it, but you didn't update the pay band.
The pay band was correct, but at some point in these 2 years, 3 years, for whatever reason, this one classification within Section 40 of the pay band there was an error made to the maximum. It was never legislated down. It was already at 124,250.48. So the pay band by legislation was correct. Point though, there was an error on the pay band, whether it be whoever created a change when doing the pay band.
So this was an administrative error.
That's correct.
That just did not update the actual legislative action that we put in place.
It had lowered it for some random reason. Correct.
And do we know where and how that was made and what happens with that? Because just having a fluctuation of $10,000 or $15,000, if it was one way or the other, this council would probably have a little challenge with that.
So we did try to locate the error. There was no record of it being legislated lower, so that we know that. So the administrative error, though, we weren't able to identify at what point that was made. I do believe it was probably sometime in early 2023. But upon review of the pay bands in 2020, 2021, 22, they were all still at a maximum of $124,000.
And Director, I would say this because I want to not put only you on the spot. We find ourselves trying to catch a lot of clerical. Usually this is Casey's job. I tell Casey that he usually He usually is the guy that catches this kind of stuff. But we've been finding ourselves catching a lot of clerical or administrative challenges. And the challenge with having those is when we do something legislatively, we figure that they're going to get carried out, only to find out later that we have to do other legislative actions to clean up some stuff. So we're going to be a little bit more diligent about making sure that stuff gets right up front so that we don't have to do as much cleanup work. And it needs to be somebody who's held accountable, because this is, I can't count how many times people have come to us and say, we don't know who made the mistake or who's accountable. So we just need to make sure we start understanding that more. And I'll leave it at that, but because it's a regular routine thing, but just a couple of things that I noticed in the process, okay?
I think it's a fair comment.
Thank you. I have Councilman Brian Casey, and then Councilman Mike Polensek.
I'll let Mike go first.
Councilman Polensek, you first, and then Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. The question I have, what I'm confused on, is the comptroller, and who was the comptroller that left?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't believe she's officially transferred, at least it's not in the system, but her name is Lee Ebner.
And she left because of the pay?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't know why she
Oh.
left. I'm assuming she was taking, it's with another city department, and I'm assuming it was a better or different opportunity for her.
Oh, okay, because I'm trying to understand, because I thought if it was a pay issue, as the council president indicated, why you just wouldn't have come back to correct the pay band.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's actually what I'm doing.
Well, I know that
Yeah.
now, but it's after the fact.
Through the chair to the councilman, so the error was discovered by Port, probably at the point in which they realized they had to post the position, realizing this person was leaving.
Yes.
We're looking at the salary range, and that what was approved via the pay band. That's where the error was probably discovered when they brought it to our attention.
Yeah. Okay.
We did attempt to locate where the administrative error, when the administrative error was created,
Okay.
which we couldn't, but it was in no way to cover for a salary because the legislation was already
Yes.
there for a higher salary.
Okay. So
That
based
makes
on what you're presenting to us, the new pay band will be a maximum of $136,675.52.
Through the chair of the councilman, that's correct, and that what it does is it incorporates what the maximum should have been, the correct maximum of $124,250, plus the 10% that we added back in late March to account for GWIs and other adjustments that could be made to every non-bargaining
Okay.
pay band.
So we know what the maximum, that includes the 10% adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the minimum on that pay range, on that pay band?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's still the absolute minimum, which is $31,866, which is just the minimum for many classifications that will never go that low. It's just,
Well, then why don't you ever correct that? No one's going to be a comptroller for $31,000 a year. Okay?
Through the chair.
Why isn't that
That's
correct?
correct. It's just a base. We have that minimum through the entire pay band. I can't think of actually one position offhand that actually pays that, with the exception of maybe a seasonal or part-time hourly person. But that's just to bring it up to what was passed, to amend the minimum of either 31,866 or I think it's 1533 per hour.
And this is for port control.
This is specifically for port control. That's correct.
So I'll end it at this point. Has the administration, this present administration, ever considered taking a deep dive into the pay bands to correct them? You're making a correction, you're coming to us today with a correction for one position, but you just alluded to that no one is going to work as a comptroller for $31,000 a year. I think at some point that the administration has to look at all the pay bands, all departments, all divisions, and making sure that, we're dealing in the real world in different times. And if we have to make adjustments, because, how long have we gone out without an inspector general? 2 years. 2 years, and I'm told the issue there is pay. 2 years for an inspector general. I don't get it. I think at some point where we're having a problem filling critical positions, that we have to come to our senses and look at the pay bands. We have to be competitive. And if we're not competitive, we're not going to get critical positions filled. So that's all I can say. I would hope the administration would either themselves look at this or start talking to somebody outside who's knowledgeable about this type of hiring and pay practices and come up with some recommendations for us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 478-2024 will be heard for consideration by the entire council this evening. Thank you so much, Director.
Thank you.
All right. That being said, this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to adjourn by the chair. Thank you.